So first of all, thank you everyone for giving us this opportunity to discuss this very important topic of how to use Gen AI to unlock innovation and efficiency. And I'm very grateful to all the panelists who are here. I think you guys have already had a few sessions around generative AI, so we'll not probably do a 0 to 1 on that. But I think one of the most important things that we intend to discuss today is that while generative AI has been the buzzword for almost a year now, and different companies, different industries have been trying to get onto this bandwagon, also trying to figure out ways in which they can integrate it and outsmart the market, outsmart the competition. Every industry is facing its own set of challenges, and they have their own set of learnings that they have either figured out or in the way of, or in the process of figuring it out. As something that has happened with other technologies in the past, I think one thing that we all would agree upon is that the future belongs to a very collaborative approach, and particularly when it's come to technology. You know, uh, unless you discuss the problems, nobody will address it. And we live in a connected world. You might be facing a problem sitting somewhere in Delhi, and somebody in Latin America will solve it for you, or for the entire world. So I think the best way we can address today's session is perhaps learn from the experiences of this esteemed panel here, what they have done so far, how they perceive generative AI, and particularly their own experiences and their own, we all call that Jugaad method, but everybody would have in some way built something using Jugaad in terms of how they are actually disrupting this market in whatever way they are. So why don't I start with Rahul, because your name was first called out. You are the founder and CEO of GetWork. Uh, Tell us about your journey with generative AI so far, and how you have approached it, and particularly how have you addressed the innovation aspect of it.
Great. So thank you so much for this, and thank you all the members out there. So yeah, so we established GetWork back in 2018, and when I graduated from NIT Allahabad, and when I saw there was a huge disparity when it comes to campus placements, wherein people graduating from NIT, IITs and IIMs enjoy great packages, like nothing against them. They have worked hard their entire lives. But when I went back to my hometown, so I belong from Meerut, a tier 2 city based out of UP, I saw there was a huge disparity that was out there, and we have been solving this for the last 5 years, wherein we are helping colleges in tier 2, 3, 4 cities to increase their campus placements. So for them to actually have the exposure from just 5 to 7 companies that are visiting there to making the number go up to 70, 80, 90, 100. So in the first 3, 4 years, were able to solve the exposure problem that was out there. But the problem that we still faced was, like, even when we throwing 40 opportunities, 50 opportunities, 60 opportunities to these students, they were not able to comprehend that in their regional ways. So essentially, India is not just India. It is an amalgamation of so many ethnicities, so many diversities, such diversities are out there. And when we saw for the first time, and I'll be very honest about that, that in November 2022, when ChatGPT came into being, and after like 2 months, I got to know, like, this is something that exists. And I was completely blown away. And how we are using it right now in terms of innovation with GetWork. We are using it in 3 specific use cases. First one is we are helping candidates, our students that we have onboarded from over 1,500 colleges, and GetWork right now has more than 20 lakh users from 300 plus cities of India. So we are helping them create resume in English, wherein they are just giving input in any of the regional languages. So basically, if they are just telling their story in Hindi, in Kannada, in Malayali, in any of those formats, we are helping them there. We are not stopping there. When we are able to get what do they need and their resumes with us, we are helping them prepare for each and every job very specifically. So each candidate is unique. So their experiences are unique. There is no one formula fits all. So that is where we are helping them. And the third one is where we are helping them to actually prepare for the interviews, for the assessments and interviews, as essentially like, what are the questions that are going to be asked. So that is how we are unlocking the innovation using the Gen AI in our product.
Awesome. Perhaps now I can, take a leaf and maybe hand this over to Sundar. Sundar, you work with Happiest Mind, right? And the truth is, this is one use case that we are talking about, right? Now, when it comes to Gen AI, I think this is one of the use cases. As someone who's building solutions to this space, and I think he mentioned the word India is very diverse, right? I do not recall the exact phrase. Then, when thinking of building out generative AI solutions for the industry or for your own experiences in terms of whatever requests you are getting from customers, how do you foresee this, or how do you actually inculcate innovation and efficiency, and how do you solutionize Gen AI solutions for the industry?
So at Happiest Minds, we pride ourselves being born agile, born digital, right? So that comes with our ability to work with new technologies in a much more creative and easy way. And our COE has been at the front of taking such technologies forward. Now, you can look at it as a two-dimensional metrics where we have the different industry groups, whether it's media entertainment, whether it's edutech, healthcare, pharma, BFSI, etc. on one axis, and you look at all the functions on the other axis, which is marketing and sales, finance, customer support, etc. We have populated the different use cases that we anticipate first from these, box cells in terms of application areas where Gen AI could be effective. I think that's the first step to recognize where Gen AI can be effective. The second thing is we extracted 3 archetypes of problems we try and solve, and it could be in any combination or individually 3 archetypes. One is on information retrieval in a very seamless and effective way. The other one is on content summarization, and the other one is on content generation, be it text or multimodal, right? So if you look at it, by solving this problem in this manner, what we have then done is build accelerators and solution, kind of prototypes, which we can take and fit it to the industry-specific problem. So we'll work with the, let's say, BFSI domain, let's say it's insurance domain, and create something which is focused on, let's say, looking at underwriting contracts and be able to summarize data from it, right? So that's the way we have been able to take the plethora of asks that come from industry and different clients to us, make it simpler by creating these archetypes of solutions we can go to market with. Now, what we have seen is successes in the form of paid POCs, where we have started work with clients who are interested in testing out this technology on their platform, on their data. We are starting to see early successes of scaling up those POCs from POCs to implementation, but we are still early in that journey. But I think that's the way we look at it. Create archetype solutions, create solution accelerators which can be leveraged across, and then efficiently deploy them for client situations.
Awesome. So that sounds like exciting, actually. Just a quick follow up to that. So the solutioning that you do, how much of that is reactive in terms of that's coming from the customer, and is there a part to it that's also proactive that you are building for the future? And maybe after this, I would perhaps ask the same question to Amitabh, who represents Prisma, but maybe first.
Sure. So typically, I would say 60-70% is something that we can create proactively, because we are doing the research as we speak, and we had actually started on Gen AI journey much before even the recent hype cycle. We had worked with the Google birds, etc., for solving problems, etc. But having said that, contextualizing the solution to the client need is where the rubber meets the road. And that's very critical for a client to see success. A lot of clients are very, very wary about security, privacy, and ethical issues around it. So we need to prove that our solution is keeping to those boundaries. So a lot of it is then contextualized to the client's piece. But that'll be the 30 to 40%. But make no mistake, the 30 to 40% of contextualizing to the client piece is laborious and very, very difficult to close, because there'll always be those edge cases of hallucinations, etc., that you need to solve for, which takes a larger effort to solve for.
Amitabh?
Yeah, thanks. So I come from a company called Prisma AI, where we build products, AI products, but we're only into the visual space. For me, Gen AI was a negative word. So, I mean, everybody's heard of the deep fakes. You've seen the Obama videos. So that is what I need to protect against. Having said that, there is also the Indiana Jones 5 happening, wherein Harrison Ford looks that young. So there are all those aspects of Gen AI for me in the visual space. From building my product point of view, your question as to whether the business or the clients drove my need to use Gen AI, honestly, no. There are 2 or 3 major areas where I actually use Gen AI in my own product development. Everybody will be aware, data, that is the biggest thing for any AI deep learning model building or whatever method you're using. So in the real world scenario where we are usually solving real world problems and not the a standard product, for me data has always been a challenge, and that's where we've been using Gen AI for synthesizing data which is relevant for my enhancing the accuracy, speed in my products. Another area which has been used to quite a bit is something called as super resolution, wherein basically given an image, if it's blurred in the real world scenario, there's dust, blah, blah, what can I do in terms of improving the quality of the image, not just by using an OpenCV manipulation, but they're using generative AI for improving the quality of the image. In terms of clients, most common usage, police converting your sketches into a more realistic face for searching for a particular person of interest kind of scenario. We have reached out to a lot of industries, so I would say design and architecture has been an area which has been using it. If you ask me from a truly improving the business ROI, wherein you can do proof of concepts on the virtual world without having to build prototypes in the real world, which is expensive. So that's been an area which some of the industries, I know automotive industries obviously have done a lot in that space, and a lot of other architectural world people have also been using that. And we've, as far as possible, have been sort of helping those clients.
Wow, that's very innovative and interesting. In fact, the point where you mentioned that it's a negative connotation for you because there's a lot of negative usages as well. And perhaps the domains that you are operating in requires very high precision and you can't go wrong. I think at this point of time, I'd want to bring in Gaurav in here because he has also had his experience with LLMs, right? So all this talk about generative AI, hallucinations, usages and applications, what has your experience been so far?
No, thank you. Just some context, I am the CRO for Kapture. We are a customer support automation platform, and we work with folks, with customers like Flipkart, Nykaa, Big Basket, Zepto, Meesho. So if you next time order groceries on Zepto or Big Basket and you have a customer query, that's being powered by Kapture. Now, the reason I've given this background is because customer support is one of the first areas which is being influenced by Gen AI at scale. Just to give you an example, for one of the largest quick commerce companies in the country, they've been on Kapture over the last 18 months. They've seen a 20 times jump in ticket volume, where the customers are calling in or wanting to have a chat with an agent, while their agent count or the person who are handling these queries, that number has gone up only 2 times. So 2 times versus the 20 times jump in queries. Now, why has that happened? Because close to 85–86% of the queries are automated on the back of Gen AI. Now, to your question, where we are seeing this impact is actually through the entire chain of support. Now, when it comes to an inbound call or an inbound chat, tagging the ticket that why is the customer calling, right? Identifying that on the basis of the conversation or on the basis of the text. Second, helping the agent with a co-pilot, which is contextual. So if Sundar calls the Zepto helpline, it would know that most likely why Sundar is calling, because if he's placed an order, he's likely calling about that order. And even within that order, if there were 2 items which were fresh fruits and vegetables, and those are the items which are having an issue from that dark store, then you are able to identify that and make support that personalized and contextual. And all of this AI is not just making an agent a super agent, but it is also powering the entire Autobot or the conversational layer, where it is no longer rule-based. So that's the impact that we are seeing for Gen AI very, very practically, where it is helping some of these most customer experienced, obsessed companies in the country to help them elevate their customer experience while bringing down cost. To your question around LLMs, we've tried, the large language models, from all the large OEMs, whether it's a Google or OpenAI and Grok now. In addition, what we've done is we've built our own LLM, which is focused on support only. So it is able to identify the top 100 questions which customers could ask in the context of grocery, and basis that respond. Now, of course, these models, they require the right kind of data to avoid any hallucination, and which is where, we are doing deep dive testing, so that we are able to address this. And even when we are deploying them with the right kind of guardrails, so that we are able to avoid any of these issues. Thank you.
Great. I think the point that you culminated on, which is very, very important, that how do you build guardrails around, from them going wrong, actually. At this point, I'll bring in Mangesh, right? I think perhaps, as Gaurav was mentioning, he's serving some e-commerce companies, right? And you build for e-commerce. What has your experience been, particularly in terms of what solutions to build, how to identify what would work, what would not work, and again, how do you build guardrails that they survive?
Great, thanks a lot. So my name is Mangesh. I'm the Chief AI Officer at Graas. Graas stands for Growth as a Service, where we help brands grow online. So for us, AI was something that was a need of the hour, because as these businesses have gone online and have started to grow online, the volume of data that they got access to just kept growing exponentially. And it became near impossible for any company or individual to process all of that data manually. So for us, it started off primarily as processing data at scale and using it more as predictive AI to say what will happen, and how can you identify what are the levers that are making, sale happen or sale go down, et cetera, et cetera. Where Gen AI came in for us is that, all of this was represented in a lot of boring dashboards or very textual recommendations, do this. And the user really had to take a lot of effort to figure out whether this is the right thing, et cetera, et cetera. So adoption was a challenge, and that's where Gen AI came in for us, where we converted all of this predictive AI into more conversational, where people could ask questions, we could keep context of the questions they're asking, go back to our own data and fetch answers for them. So started off with simple questions like, what was my sale last month? Or which campaign did the best last month? But now we are getting more and more into questions like why. So for example, if we say something that this particular product or this SKU, the sale fell by 30%, we are now getting into, being able to answer questions as to why did it fall. And that's a very, loaded question, because it's very hard to get to the exact why. But I think what we are able to do with the help of Gen AI is lead people to potential causes, give weights around them, and generally help them with decision making. I think that's the role that Gen AI is playing for us. So coming back to your question about guardrails, for us, a lot of this data is proprietary data, so it can't go onto a general open source LLM, right? So although we are using a lot of that initially to learn and give quick results, eventually we'll have to ensure that this data is not in the public domain. So that's one guardrail that we have to have. And secondly, people are making business decisions based on what we are saying, right? So we need to be sure about the way we are saying these things, because ChatGPT is, often guilty of sounding overconfident that this is what happened. And that's one area that we had to work on, saying this is the likelihood, this is what happened, there's a 70% chance, there's an 80% chance. Everything is not 0 or 1. So those are the areas in which we had to put in some guardrails.
Very comprehensive in terms of what you are doing with Gen AI. Pawan, I think I didn't pick you as the last person to speak just because you're sitting so apart. But having heard so many people speak on the table, right, about their own experiences, I think one of the things that we need to talk about today, innovation, of course, but then efficiency is also important, right? From your own experience with generative AI, how do you think or how do you perceive is Gen AI making things more efficient? Is it not? Or is there an uphill curve before it will start making things more efficient? How is your experience with the domain so far been?
Thanks, Anubhav. And I was listening to everyone. And so just, for the audience, my name is Pawan, and I am the co-founder of a company called Shorthills AI. And we, we started this company around 6 years ago. And when there was at least no talk of AI. And we started with word to wake, and we tried to build AI models since last 6 years. And when in November 2022, when ChatGPT came, suddenly it became your talk of the town. At least all the board members, all the CEOs, they saw the power of AI somewhere, firsthand, they experienced it firsthand. And luckily, we were able to at least work with some very good companies. And one of the co-founders for a project was a proper hardcore maths, PhD maths Olympiad guy. So luckily, we were on the frontier of technology to that extent. And that has given us some view. And so coming to efficiency, and that was the specific question, right? I'd also like to quote the recent report by Goldman Sachs, which came hardly a week ago, and where they had done surveys with all the CIOs. And what they've been telling is that in the next 1 year, they don't expect to spend more than 1 to 3% of their IT budget on generative AI. Next 1 year. And in the next 3 years, this number will go up to around 10 to 15%. Now, I think that's a good perspective to have in mind, okay? So of course, their IT spend is going to be there, but Gen AI or AI would be only 1 to 3%. And again, I'm giving a general number right now, average number. Now, what it means is then, so this can maybe answer this question about efficiency. Now, at least in my experience, all the large corporate, again, not talking about, startups, right, where of course they can do a lot of things, and we are seeing this right now, right? I mean, you're from sports, into vision, into hiring, we can see, and there are use cases which are established and well known. I think for large enterprises, it boils down to ROI. I think we just, heard that term from Amitabh about ROI, and at least in my experience, this ROI is the key thing. So right now, all the large enterprises, they're asking this question: what is going to be my ROI? Great, you can build in generative AI, it can reduce my head count somewhere, it can do this for me, it can increase some efficiency, but where is the ROI? And that question is difficult to answer for one reason, because A, this technology is changing, evolving very fast every day, right? Right now, the accuracy or the levels which we get on a notebook with very small amount of data, and I'm sure, we've got people from industry, they will just, agree to this immediately. The efficiencies that you get on a notebook with, I don't know, very small amount of data is not what you get when you start dealing at the production level. And there the question comes, what is the kind of efficiency or accuracy we are getting at production level data? I think that is one big question. And these models, when it comes to real-time data, when it comes to real-time interaction, these things become a problem. So that is one part. And the efficiency part, which was your primary question, I think the efficiency comes at 2 or 3 different levels. One, for B2C companies, it comes down to, can I increase my customer base? Right? If I do something like, can I do certain things in e-commerce? Can I do certain things where I can generate huge amount of content or personalize specific ads or personalize specific service? Can it help me get more customers? Can I reduce the headcount in support, as we just heard, Then will it lead to some increment in my overall margins? I think those questions are getting answered, And I think that's where we are looking at a 3 years time frame right now to really get to those answers. That's the general sense.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Pawan said. From a ROI, clearly the ROI point is echoing very nicely, across all our customers. And just to give sort of specific data points, at a customer support center, when the agent picks up the call and says hello, that has costed the company 50 rupees, right? When you account for the cost of the agent and the infrastructure and everything, right? But the moment you are able to automate, that conversation, either by voice or by chat, that ticket resolution with the help of AI today, we are able to do that today at a cost of anywhere between 3 to 5 rupees, right? So that is the kind of delta that the customers are seeing. Of course, what they want to ensure is that the conversation still remains personalized, it remains contextualized, it remains humanized, right? Eventually you don't want these large enterprises to have their customers just talking to a machine, right? They want to feel that connect with the business. So ROI, yes, but how do you deliver that ROI without compromising on that experience? I think those are the two big things, which these enterprises are going for.
If I just would like to add a couple of points, because our customers become very excited about Gen AI and want to do it across the business, right? Now, knowing where to start and where to play on Gen AI to create value for yourself is very critical, and that's what we do, right? We first prioritize the ones which will have the maximum impact and the easiest to kind of solve, typical change management topic. But once we do that, it creates the momentum within the organization to feel good and want to invest more. And then the ROI, becomes an easier game to play because you already tasted success. So in a way, we do this as you already created the value, you created some money coming in, and it pays for the next step of innovation that you want to drive and investment you want to drive. So that's very critical in an organization to look inside, see where you want to play first, create the value, and then move that momentum rather than try with the hardest case where you may face a failure or not get success commensurate to the effort you put, and everything then stalls.
And just to add to your point as well, so yes, definitely, somewhere you can see the results where as the delta that you said that from 50 it got to 5, but for companies in HR tech domain where the life cycle is a lot, a person is entering and applying for the first time and then getting hired, that is also a big one. So this is where the companies have to make the investment to see the efficiency. So what we have seen in the last 6 months when we started using generative AI, that our selection ratio rose up by 37% on the same database where we were pitching those same students and their fellow people that were out there. Then with the help that we got them in terms of creating the resume, in terms of preparing them for the interviews and all, that is also something that increased by 37%, and which is again the return on investment that we had invested in the very beginning. So that is something where the answers for each company is going to be different, wherein first they'll see the same thing that you have said in the very beginning, that the results are very, very they can see it right now, but somewhere there will be need of investments, and later on we'll be seeing that efficiency coming in.
Right. Thanks, Rahul. Mangesh, on to you. I think my next question from this trail of conversations we had is that when it comes to innovation, right, and generative AI, is this and the need that is showing up from different customers and different industries, is this primarily driven by a lot of perception and is it primarily B2C, which is whatever is consumer facing, or companies also trying to draw or build innovative solutions for their intra-department conversations and solutions, or is it also inward looking, or are there also B2B innovations that are also happening in the industry?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. I'll give you one example. So we work with a very large electrical equipment manufacturing company. This is a global firm, Fortune 50, etc. And we've always run their B2B e-commerce, so where their retailers and distributors can place orders. And we were quite surprised last year when they said that, we built a WhatsApp chatbot for it, etc., etc. They said now we are building an entire LLM in-house. And it's an electrical equipment manufacturer, right? There is no need for them to be building an LLM So we said, why don't you define the problem? So the problem, they said, is we need to build an LLM. So there is a lot of craze going, especially in these large companies where they're seeing all of this happening. They are putting in a lot of time, effort, money behind building something which they don't really know how they're going to use. Which, it could be okay in certain cases, but in certain other cases, it's premature, right? You better have a good use case in mind. But I think there is a lot of pressure, not just from management, but shareholders and everybody, that what are you doing in this space? This is growing so crazily. And it may not apply to your field at all today, but you still have to do something. You can't go there and say, it doesn't apply to me, I'm not going to do anything. So there are good use cases coming out, there are not so good use cases coming out, but there's clearly a lot of frenzy around this.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So I want to pick on the word perception, which you mentioned. So kind of adding to that. So I keep getting calls every now and then, usually from the IT head or the, of some large corporate. So what are you doing in Gen AI? Can you implement it for me? He has no idea what it is, has just heard has heard the buzzword. But then obviously the decision is being made by the business. The IT may be the enabler for the business. And if, as we talked about ROI, it's obviously the business is going to look at the ROI. And he doesn't care whether you're using Gen AI, normal AI, or simple mathematical business AI, what we did in the 30 years back. He wants his results to be improved, his efficiency to be improved. So unfortunately, the buzzword has also been mauled to some extent, and like you mentioned, that's why the report says only 1% in the next 1 year. Maybe once the industry, the business leaders start understanding what it is all about, or they might even say, okay, I don't care, you are the integrator, whether Happy Mind or any other integrator is doing it, implementing Gen AI or whatever they're implementing, they should be getting the results. So that's where, one of the things which I would like to point out. For me, fortunately, from visual AI, for us, the low-hanging fruits, okay, we have been in this for last 20 years. Low-hanging fruit was security. I mean, find the terrorist, find the bomb, find the gun. There is no ROI, fear sells. So luckily for me, those initial few years, I didn't have to prove an ROI. Fear was a good factor to sell on, and if I can catch that, even that one bomb in 3 years is a good enough achievement for them. Another angle to it is there is the large corporates and there's the small medium enterprises who are not aware. I mean, again, they're not even aware of Gen AI. They might have heard of AI. I mean, let's be honest, as in it's not in their line of business. So are we, me as a AI provider, am I still reaching out to them? Honestly, no. AI is still expensive. I think one of the previous sessions talked about networking costs and hardware costs and cybersecurity costs. So it's still expensive. We do try to explain what we are doing in AI, in Gen AI, where relevant. And usually, so far has mostly been in the government and or large corporates sector where it's really been prevalent. Hopefully, 3 years down the line, India will be richer and we will spend more.
Just one thought came when you said about the CIOs asking you to build something in Gen AI. That's a constant battle that I need to face with my clients because they want to solve a problem with Gen AI without really figuring out whether there are alternate, better ways to do it. And many times we need to dial back and say, this is not a problem for Gen AI at all. We need to look at alternate ways. And that's a big trap, otherwise we can fall into trying to hit every nail with the Gen AI hammer, which is...
I was about to say that Gen AI is the hammer, and they're finding a nail, and this is exactly, you nailed it actually.
So Pawan, maybe you only can, perhaps continuing in the same vein, do you think, and with your own experiences and whatever we have heard from the panel today, do you think the adoption of Gen AI, and particularly in the Indian context, is it happening at an adequate pace? Are there any inhibitors, big inhibitors? Are there any big enablers that we need to change for driving particularly the innovative aspect of it? Spends is one, which we have talked about. Are there others?
I think anyways, the idea of spend or ROI was meant for large corporate. Now, just saving, one life or, saving a bomb explosion is worth more than anything, I think, that is given. Now, coming to Indian context, I think at least we don't see any difference in the way, at least Indian companies are trying to adopt Gen AI as compared to say companies in the West. We don't see that. I mean, Indian companies are actually pretty much active. Anyways, a lot of work is being done from India, that's given. I think the real challenge over here is language. Now, essentially, all these models, if you look at OpenAI or all of these models, right, they have been essentially trained on data from in English, right? All the text at least has been in English. And if you look at the population of, I don't know, Tamil Nadu or population of Kerala or any speak Bengal, these are as big as Germany or any large country, right? So I think the real challenge that we are facing right now is in terms of training these models on Indian languages, and there are nuances to that. Our languages are, in that sense, different from English, which is like, okay, these alphabets. So I think that's the real challenge, according to me, which these and these companies are facing. And there is Sarvam, which is doing a good job over here. Then Bhashini, the government is trying to work through Jugalbandi, and they've got, so people are working on this. The government is, I think they're doing, working very hard on this. A lot of companies are trying to look at vernacular languages. Even the way, say, even if we crack Hindi, right, the way Hindi is being spoken in, say, Bihar versus the way it is being spoken, let us say, in Punjab, is going to be different. I think these are the real challenges right now when it comes to the LLMs or those parts. I think in vision, I mean, I'm not the best guy to answer that question on vision. The other thing which we face constantly, and I think everybody is facing, is the paucity of chips and GPUs. I mean, they are clearly much costly and they are not available. I mean, at the end of the day, with all the ideas, whatever we want to do, I mean, that is a problem. So the government has, of course, announced certain schemes that they will put so much money, they'll build so many GPUs. I believe once that happens and we solve the problem of languages for at least our 16, national, those identified languages, I think then we really start seeing the progress at every level.
Thanks for that. Gaurav, since you picked it
Yeah,
up anyhow,
I just wanted to
just
add
wanted
to
to
that.
add one point is that language is a challenge, it's an opportunity. How do you see it?
No, absolutely. I think language is a challenge and an opportunity for sure. And what Pawan mentioned about the work the government is doing with Bhashini, I think that's great. It's clearly solving that problem. I was at Google before this, and we were working very closely with the government around Bhashini to build those vernacular models, which can serve both search, video, voice, all of that. So that infrastructure is there. Just wanted to add to the bottlenecks that you talked about. I think from a talent point of view, India is still running short. The ability to go out and find, talent which can help you build these models or help you sort of build the wrappers around these models, to sort of drive application. I think that's still very, very homegrown. It is something that we need to build on. Second, from a funding point of view, AI is a rich man's game. It requires that kind of investment, whether it's in terms of training a model or getting the data. Again, the funding ecosystem, the government, all of that has to kick in. We need to have a lot of corporates coming in to sort of provide that. And I think finally policy. I think the shape that the government policy would take, that would drive a huge impact on how the AI ecosystem in India evolves. Basis the announcement earlier, it looked like it was being curtailed a bit, but then the government very quickly took action, was proactive, was listening, and they gave clarifications, which shows that the government has an open mind around this, to drive innovation. So I think these are the 2-3 things that we need to address to make sure AI gets adopted in the right way and we see the right amount of innovation.
Question about India, whether it's lagging behind or not. If you look at the few latest technologies that came up in the last few years, whether it was metaverse, blockchain, etc., those technologies, at least our impression from Happiest Minds perspective, based on our client conversations, have been India was never trying to adopt those technologies ahead of the curve. Whereas on Gen AI, the number of inquiries we are getting from Indian clients about wanting to work with this technology, do POCs, is maybe even ahead of many of our other geographies. So I would say on at least Gen AI, it's not lagging behind at all. I think it's at the forefront of it.
At least I can talk about my own experience in sports is that whatever we are building, and we are building for the world, whenever we go to any sports federation across the globe, they generally tell us that whatever we're building is cutting edge and they haven't seen it from anybody else on the planet. So I do think that generative AI has a very strong future. Of course, with some industries would have their own blockers, enablers. But I think if we try and work with all the stakeholders and maybe exchange a lot of good know-how and knowledge as we did in today's panel discussion, then the future actually holds a lot of promise, perhaps just taking our country to the world. Anybody else wants to add any concluding remark? Thank you. Thank you.